Hey everybody, welcome to the broadcast today. My name is Trevor and I am going to be the host of this Amazon presentation. And today the main topic is just going to be something very simple, but also something it's an essential skill. You guys got to have it. It's the ability to properly estimate monthly sales on any given ASIN on Amazon, to the point where you guys can look at a product on Amazon and within seconds be able to say, okay, I estimate this is going to sell X number of times per month, and if I were to get in on this item, I believe I could likely sell Y number of items per month. And why there's a difference there, because we've got to look at the competition. So an essential skill, you guys got to have it, and I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about it today. Now let's just pick some products in general to kind of do this with. So let's look at, because this came up this week, just with in another circumstance, which is why I'm going here. I'm going to look at some beekeeping apiary gloves. Okay, and it's just an example. We could pick any product, and we may pick more as we're talking. And none of this has been prepared, by the way. We're going to just do this as if we were looking at some of these products for the first time together, and I'm going to talk to you guys about how I would estimate monthly sales. Now first, why is that important? Why, when we look at a product, do we need to know how many sales are happening? Well, that's easy, right? Like if you're going to sell a particular product and you have a supplier for it, you need to be able to at least closely estimate how many sales are going to happen per month for that item, right? That way you know how much inventory you can or should order. If you don't know how many sales are happening, it's a shot in the dark, and you may send product to Amazon that sits in a warehouse, right? And sitting in a warehouse at Amazon is not a smart thing if it goes beyond a certain point. And our recommendation is usually you don't want inventory at an Amazon warehouse for more than 6 months, because that gets expensive and the cost is greater to you. So there are storage fees, right? Like Amazon doesn't store products for free, and they're usually minimal. But if it sits there too long, it's going to be more substantial, and that's going to eat into your profit. So the general rule, this is the first rule I want you guys to make a note of, is to simply just make sure you're not ordering more than 6 months worth of inventory. In fact, let's just make a list of these rules so that you guys can kind of follow along better. I'm going to bring out a little notepad here, and we're going to write these down together. Today's webinar rules, right? And we're going to say 1, don't ever buy more than 6 months worth of inventory. Okay, and number 2, which is sort of a follow-up to that, if it's the first time you guys are buying an item, like you've never done it before, you just barely found a supplier for it, and you're just selling it for the first time, if it is the first time it's happening for you on a certain ASIN, don't buy too much. And I'm going to say, in terms of what that actually means, I mean test it with no more than, like, at most, we'll say 10 to 15 units. Like, be conservative, right, the first time, because here's the tough thing. Like, for all the tools and the stuff that we use together to figure out how many sales are happening on an ASIN, at the end of the day, it's still an estimate, right? Like, none of these tools are absolute for sure, this is how many you're going to sell per month. They're pretty close, but the estimate could be wrong, right? So we need to make sure that the first time we're conservative, so that if it doesn't sell as well as we wanted it to, or the estimates didn't or weren't as close as the reality, that we're not stuck with inventory we can't move. So that's big. You know, let's be conservative on our first ones. Now, some of you guys will say, well, you know, if it's retail arbitrage and something is on clearance, if I'm conservative now, you know, I may not be able to go back and buy that product again at the same price. And to that I understand. But still, my recommendation for most of you guys who are newer is the same. Let's be conservative to start, right? When you're better at this and you've done this for a while And by a while, several months, and you've done multiple orders, and you've sold on 20, 25, 30 different ASINs, then maybe you can be a little bit more aggressive, right? Because you've got a greater risk tolerance at that point. But if you're all newer, I think I would live by this rule number 2 here, which is don't buy too much at the start. Okay. At most 10 to 15 units, but that also depends on how quickly the item sells. If we estimate that it's only going to sell 2 per month, maybe I'm just going to have you buy 4 units, maybe 5, right? So be really, really conservative here, generally speaking. Okay, so looking at our item here, let's scroll down and pick one of these. Let's maybe do this one right here. Okay, now what we've taught you guys in the past is when you're looking at an item, the way you estimate total sales is you scroll down on the item and you find this section right here. This is the product information section, right? We look for product information, and then we look for, and you guessed it, bestsellers rank, right? Now, with any given ASIN, you may find that it's got several bestseller ranks. In this case, it has 1 and then 2, right? It's got this one right here at 160,574, and then it's got this one right here at 1,455. What's the difference? Well, this one is the tools and home improvement is a top level category on Amazon. And those are the ones we need. So I can really only estimate based on this number. If I tried to estimate based on this 1455, you'll notice this is in tools and home improvement, but it's in a subcategory, multiple subcategories. It's under safety and security, personal protective equipment, another sub, hand and arm protection, another sub, lab safety and work gloves, another sub, safety work gloves, right? We don't have a tool that's out there that can properly estimate any kind of subcategory sales. It only works with the top level category, right? Okay, so we see that it's 160,574. Now, a lot of you guys would take that number, and I've seen clients that'll go directly to the Jungle Scout estimator, right? So you guys have seen the Jungle Scout. In fact, maybe I'll just bring it up here for you real quick. That's one way that a lot of people will check sales. They'll go to junglescout.com/estimator, and they'll use this tool to tell them how many sales are happening. So let's see if we can find, for this one, United States of America, and we need to find the category it was in. What category was it in? Tools and home improvement. Let's see if they've got that one here. Yeah, here's the home improvement category. And then what was the rank again? 160,574. 160,574. Calculate sales, right? Okay, this is per month. So it's estimating on this item there's going to be about 5 per month at that BSR, okay? Well, I show this to you not because I want you to use this tool very often. I feel like the Jungle Scout tool is very liberal in its estimates. It's very aggressive in its estimates, and I find it's not usually as accurate as, say, this tool right here. FBA Toolkit.com. Now, some of you guys will recognize this, right? We bring this up in some of our other trainings. We feel like this, generally speaking, is the most conservative, but also the most accurate in its estimates of ASINs or of BSRs on Amazon. Okay. So I'm going to tell you guys to use this. I probably wouldn't even use the other tool, honestly. I would just use this because we feel really good about it. So I'm going to find tools and home improvement, and I'm going to put in that BSR, which was 160,574. So here we go. 574. Go. Okay. So this is saying well, let's read this together because this gets confusing to my clients. This is saying 1 every 2 days over the last 30 days. So that doesn't mean it just sells 1 a day. And you'll notice it says over the last day it sold 1. But it says on average over the last 30 days it sells 1 every 2 days. So that means according to this, it's going to do about 15 per month. So we have to ask ourselves which one is right. Is it the FBA Toolkit at 15? Or is it the Jungle Scout at 5, right? And how can we know for sure? Well, here's the answer. You can't know for sure. These are estimates, and they're estimates based on the best data that's out there, but it will always be an estimate. And having done this for a long time, our coaches and analysts say that your FBA Toolkit's going to be better. It's going to be closer. It's going to be more accurate, which in this case is good because the estimate was a little higher here, right? We're going to be doing, according to this, 15 per month. Okay. So back to our sheet of rules for today, right? Let me bring us back over to this tab here. We're going to say when checking a BSR, we recommend to only use FBAToolkit.com. And so you'll see other people say, well, you know, why don't you take the Jungle Scout number and the FBA Toolkit number and just average them and say, well, Jungle Scout said 15, FBA Toolkit said, 5. The average there is 10. Let's estimate based on 10. And I suppose you could do that. But again, in our experience, we've just found this number to be better. Okay. And that'll save you time too, right? Because then you're not having to check multiple tools every time you're trying to get an estimate on sales. You're just checking the one and you're going with it, and you know that's generally a conservative, good estimate. Okay. All right. So on this item, we said, there's going to be 15 sales a month. So let's go back to it. But here's the problem with that estimate. Okay. So I wouldn't estimate that, first of all. The problem with that estimate is what we know about BSR is that it's a living, breathing, changing number. Okay, so right now it's 165.74, but we could, sometimes you'll even reload the page and you'll get a different number. Right now it's the same, but this number literally can change within a minute. It could end up being several thousand different. In fact, I was looking at an ASIN just yesterday, and over the course of a day, this particular ASIN on a regular basis would move 40,000 spots in the BSR. So it would start, somewhere in the 120,000s, and a sale would take place, and it would drop down to like 60,000, and then over the course of the day, as it wasn't selling, it would slowly ratchet up, and then drop again the next day when another sale would take place. And so, at any point in time, if you just looked at a BSR at a split second in time and then tried to make estimates around that, it's not smart, because that number is moving and changing all the time. So what is smart is to look at that BSR over the space of a period of time. And we would argue at least a good 90 days would be wise. And then you get an average off of that, right? Because if you knew what this particular ASIN was doing, this pair of gloves, if you knew what the BSR was on average over the last 3 months, it's safe to assume, assuming it's not too seasonal of an item, which this, by the way, probably is, since people don't do beekeeping as much in the winter, right? Beekeepers are working in the spring and summer and in the fall, but not as much in the winter. So we would have to take that into account here. But in general, like, you want to look at the past, and the way you do that is through using Kiba, right? We've done trainings on Kiba. This is the example of a Kiba graph that's showing up. Now, you'll notice I'm on the Amazon page with the product, and all I'm doing is scrolling down, and boom, I get this really great graph right here, which I'm going to zoom in on so you guys can see a little bit better. Okay, how did I get this graph? Well, we're not going to talk in detail about setting up Kiba today, other than to say that you can download a Chrome extension for Kiba. So go to your Chrome extension store, search for Kiba, load the extension into your Google Chrome browser, and then you can make sure that it's showing up, on your Amazon product pages. It's either that or you go to kiba.com and you can search the ASIN there, but it's just a little more convenient if it's right here on the page. Okay. Now what you'll notice here is I have sales rank selected. Okay. And it's in green, and it should be green for you too. So that's selected already, and that's this green line. And what I'm going to do, just for the ease of looking at this, I'm going to deselect the other stuff, right? So you guys can only see the green line here, okay? And then you have to look at the duration, and this is over the last 3 months, right? And you can change the duration that you're seeing it. So what would you say about this product right now? So this is today, and this is currently where the sales rank is right here, right? Which makes sense because we said, what, 164,000 or whatever, and you can see the line is right here. This is the 150,000 line. So if you were just looking at this, what you might say is this looks like a stock chart, right? Going up and going down and going up and going down. And it's interesting, look at the way it goes up and then drops pretty aggressively, and up and drops and so on and so forth. And if I draw my red line on it like this, it stays low here for a little bit and then ratchets back up, and then, right? Like, how do you make any sense of this at all? It's constantly going up and down. Like, there's times where the BSR is as low as 50,000, right? Even below that, right here, it's way lower than that. And then there's times it's as high as 200,000. So what do you do about that? You don't want to just, and this should be a lesson in and of itself, like you can't look at an ASIN at one point in time, and let's say we were looking at this back on, yeah, look at this, back on August, this was August 14th. Actually, no, I'm sorry, August 16th. Look at where it says the sales rank was. It was at 31,000 on August 16th, okay? What if 31,000, like, let's just see what that actually looks like in FBA Toolkit. That's 3 per day, okay, at 31,000. That would mean we would do 90 a month versus the 15 that we're currently estimating. See, if we looked at the Kiba graph on that specific day and we didn't take the time to look at BSR averages, we would assume that this item sells 90 times a month on a regular basis, and that would have been not even close to true, right? That's just that we caught the BSR on a good selling day, it was low, and our estimates would have been thrown off. The same is true, though, a few days later. Okay, so that was August, we said that was August 16th. Okay, what about on August 22nd? Look at what the BSR was there. You can see it right there. It was 172,000, right? About 173,000. So let's put that in here and see what that tells us. So that's closer to that 15 per month, right? So over the course of just even a few days there, we noticed it went at a low and shot back up to more of a high. And so as a general rule, because things are going up and down like that, you ought to look at the average here. And luckily, Kiba does a good job. You can roll your mouse down to statistic right here, and you can see over the last 90 days, at the far right-hand side where it says sales rank is a column, and then in that green section, over the last 90 days, it's been 113,000. That's the average, right? That takes into account the dips, and it also takes into account, the highs. And so we get 113,000. That's going to be what you want to use as your estimate, right? You don't want to use the current number. You don't want to use the lows or the highs. We're going to use 113,000. So if I go there, let's see if that changes it. It may not change it that much, but let's see what it does. Okay, it's saying 1 a day then. So on average during this 3-month period of time, you can see it says 1 here. Now that doesn't mean one over the course of 30 days. That means one a day on average over the course of the last 30 days, which means over the last 3 months, this is sold once a day on average, okay? That would be the best estimate for this item. And so we would then assume, okay, well, probably going forward, if history repeats itself, it's going to continue at one a day, and we would assume 30 a month, okay? So what's our takeaway on this? I'm going to say never take BSR at face value from the product information section on Amazon, okay? Don't ever assume that number at one point in time is correct. And we're going to say rather take the average over at a minimum 90 days using Kiba. That's the number we want, okay? Guys, that makes sense. I hope that makes sense, because that's going to save you a lot of heartache. And it's going to help you too, right? Like so many of you guys, for some reason, you'll find an ASIN and the BSR under product information will be like 250,000, and immediately you say, well, that's not a good seller, and you move on to the next product. And what you didn't do is you didn't look at Kiba, and you didn't see the average, and you didn't see that before it was quite a bit lower, and that at that moment in time, it's just temporarily not selling well, but it had been selling well. And so if you look at it over those 90 days, your estimates are going to be far, far better. This is just a skill you got to have, okay? It will save you a lot of problems. Okay. All right. So, and then here's the last piece, and I won't spend too much time on this because I know we're going long here on this training. But just because we estimate that this pair of gloves sells once a day, does that mean that we're going to sell it once a day? And the answer is, well, yeah, if we're the only seller. But if there's other prime sellers, buy box rotation sellers on this thing, then that's not going to be the case, right? So right now it's selling at $11.99 and free shipping, and it's prime. And if I scroll right down here, it says one new from $11.99. And if I click on that link, it's going to show me the one person that's offering this. So right now this is one person that's doing it. Now, immediately I'm skeptical because it's done by this company called Zamango. And as I scroll up, sure enough, this is a Zamango glove. So likely the seller is also the manufacturer, so there's a good chance that this item is probably restricted. Maybe I can't sell it. Again, we're just going to assume that we can, just for the sake of this example, but you would want to go in before you ever consider this and actually try to add the item to your Amazon store just to make sure that it's unrestricted, right? And that's the way you do it. You go in and you try to make a listing on this item, and Amazon will stop you and say, oh, wait a minute, there's a brand restriction, or oh, wait a minute, there's a category description, you can't sell this. And that would be the first step, right? We would never get into this level of analysis until we knew for a fact this was unrestricted, correct? Okay. So just I mean, we're making an assumption here. We're just saying for this example, it is unrestricted, okay? If that's the case, there's one prime seller at $12. Now, what's the rule on buy box rotation? If there's a prime seller and you want rotation, generally speaking, you need to be prime as well. So, and we are, right? We're going to do FBA shipping, so we're going to assume we're prime here. If this is selling 30 times a month, this person is probably taking all 30 of those sales because they're the only seller on the item, right? So what we're doing here is we're figuring out buy box rotation. And so if you guys came in, or one of us came in and decided to sell this, and we sold it at about the buy box price, right around $11.99, we could do it for more, but it can't be beyond 5% of that to still remain in the buy box and have rotation. So we're just gonna say we're gonna price it at $11.99. If we do that, we'll share the buy box equally. This person will get 15 sales a month. We will get 15 sales per month. And that's the estimate we would make. There's 30 total sales a month we figured out together, but rotation says, based on competition, we're only going to get half of those, so we're going to get 15. So last but not least, remember to analyze buy box rotation, right? prime within 5% of lowest prime price. How many other sellers qualify for buy box rotation, etc., right? And then I'm going to end with this. Number 7, I'm going to say things can change, okay? So just because we've done all this analysis, and this has been good analysis today on this product, we've looked at Kiba, we've looked at highs and lows, we've made sure that we're not going to buy 6 months worth of inventory, and we're going to be conservative up front, and we're only going to buy 10 to 15 units, right? And when checking a BSR, we're only going to really use FBA Toolkit as our estimator, and we're using Kiba to look at averages. We've done all of this stuff, but could something change? And the answer is yes, right? There's variables here, and sometimes things change in your favor, and sometimes they change and they work against you. How it could change in our favor is this person runs out of stock, right? And then we're the only one in the buy box, and we're selling 30 a month. And if that were the case, you'd want to make sure you got a regular supplier on this, because you'd really be cruising, right? Could change in our favor that not only does this person leave, that gives us the ability to maybe jack up the price a little bit. So rather than its current price, if we're the only one in buy box rotation, there's no other competition, we could ratchet up that price a little bit and make more money per sale, right? That could happen too. So, and it could just sell better. Like, we looked at average BSRs. What we didn't do is we didn't look at the seasonality of this item. And if I looked in Kiba and looked over the last year, look what happens. And this is what we estimated earlier. Check out these BSRs from like February through June and July. Well, about through June. I mean, this is where it's really low. That section right there, I mean, these are low BSRs. Like, look at this in April. This thing gets as low as 13,000, 12,000, 9,000. This thing's selling like crazy. So the other thing is, if we were really selling this on an ongoing basis, we would want to use Kiba and adjust. So come February, we know this thing is going to sell a lot better. Look at this dip right here, right? I mean, that's a big deal. That's a really big deal. Anyway, so this is a valuable tool. We want to look at averages, but we were just looking over the past 3 months, and this is a slower time of the year, and that's why it's good to make those estimates. And you can look forward, right? You can look like last year in October, December. The sales rank was generally a little bit better, it looks like. So, maybe we could estimate based on that too. Anyway, long story short, if it is a seasonal item, you want to look at more than just the past 90 days. We'll want to look at the past year. Okay. Now, how this could change against us. So we're talking about variables for just a second. So let's say we buy 10 units and we send it into Amazon. What could change and work against us? Well, the person that's already selling this item could drop their price, right? They see we come in and are sharing the buy box, and they're like, oh no, we don't want to share with these guys. Let's drop our price. And they drop the price, and we fall out of the buy box, and then we have a decision to make. Do we drop our price, or do we just sit, wait it out, and hope they run out of inventory so we can sell it for what we thought we would sell it for? So there's a chance that price could go down, right? Just like we talked about earlier, there's a chance it can go up. It can also go down. And then here's the other thing we can't control. What happens if 3 other sellers hop onto this thing? And we didn't account for that, right? We were only looking at the 1 other seller. So let's say 3 other sellers come on, including us and this other person. So that's 1, 2, and then another 3. That's like 6 other sellers, 6 people sharing what we estimated was 30 sales a month. Maybe we're now only getting 5 sales per month, right? That's drastically lower than we thought. We didn't anticipate more sellers were going to come in. And it's hard to figure out if that's going to happen anyway, because sellers go in and out on products. So that's something that can happen and work against us. But I always tell my clients, look, you do as much analysis as you can, and you try to do all the things that you can do to control the outcome here, and then you live with the consequences of the fact that there is there are variables you can't control. And sometimes those variables work in your favor and sometimes those variables go against you. But in the long run, over the course of many ASINs and many products that you're selling, it evens out. Some work better for you, some work worse, but in the end it evens out and you're making money and doing well. And that's the way you've got to look at it. When you're a new seller on Amazon and you've only sent, 3 different ASINs into Amazon and 2 of them the price dropped, and the other one maybe it's just not selling as well as we estimated. I get why that's frustrating. But that doesn't mean the analysis wasn't correct, and it doesn't mean the strategies don't work. It just means that you have only listed 3 items, and there's a chance that on your next 6 items that you list, maybe 5 of those work in your favor, right? Maybe 1 goes exactly according to plan, and the other 5 actually get better than what you estimated. So again, like over the long haul, you should do better, and don't let that discourage you if you're a new seller. Okay, always variables we can't control, but luckily for us, we can control a lot of it. So anyway, guys, I hope that's helpful today. Just again, talking about properly estimating monthly sales, taking variations and seasonality into account. I really hope this helps you just in your estimations going forward. And if you have other questions or concerns, feel free to contact your coach. And thanks for being here. We'll see you guys next time.